Hi. I got COVID. Yeet. Now, it's just my luck when all the UK's COVID restrictions are dropped tomorrow, and I got COVID this week. As us British would put it, it's pretty peak. Speaking of peak, this was probably the worst segue into anything I've ever spoken about, but we move. Let's talk about the peak, the best manga that's coming out in 2022. This is all my opinion, you know, subjective opinions and stuff. Just because I want to read it doesn't mean you need to read it. Guys, don't hate me in the comments, but please comment. As you can tell, I'm in a little bit of a weird mood. The brain's a little bit foggy, but we're on that grind. We're still making videos, so let's go. Just before we do, I almost forgot. Make sure you use the links down in the description to Forbidden Planet, Right Stuff, and Book Depository to grab yourself some manga, comic books, action figures, anything that takes your fancy. Okay, so I know 2022 has already begun, and I know we're about a quarter of the way through, but there's a couple of series that I really wanted to talk about. Some of them have already come out, some of them I've already reviewed, and I just wanted to speak about them because 2022 is looking to be a pretty interesting year for manga. And we're going to start this off with probably the biggest one of the year, and that's Tokyo Revengers. This is a series that absolutely everyone has been talking about. The anime has been popping off, and in the manga sphere, it's been one of the most highly requested localizations of a manga that I've seen in quite a while. Tokyo Revengers is a kind of time traveler-esque story, and it follows the main character Takamichi, however you pronounce it, who suffers a tragedy in the present day and is transported back in time and given the opportunity to stop that tragedy from ever happening. He meets another character who allows him to jump forwards and backwards between the present and the past timelines, and it's his job to basically work out what's going on, what's happened, and how he can avoid it in the future or the present or the And the series itself is based around like gangs inside Tokyo, or it might not be Tokyo, but it's Japan. And I just cannot wait to get reading this one. They're releasing it in omnibus editions, and then I think they're coming out every 2 months. And before you ask, there is going to be a first impressions on the channel when it comes out. Pick number 2 is Alice in Borderland. Now, I have just finished the Netflix series of this, at least season 1, and it really blew me away. Alice in Borderland is another death game type series akin to something like Squid Game. I'm pretty sure everyone's seen that, or like the Saw movies. It follows the main character Arisu and his group of friends who are transported to an abandoned Tokyo, and they're basically forced to participate in life or death games where they're pitted against each other and someone comes out the victor. Now, all of these games are based on specific suits of cards, and the aim is to collect all of the cards together in order to apparently get returned to the world they came from before. And all of the games are really difficult. They're really tricky, and they play with the mind quite a lot. Arisu, the main character, is actually an avid video gamer, and he uses this skill of his, do we want to call it a skill, to crack the games, to figure out what the game masters want, and to be able to win the games without people getting hurt. But it's a really awesome series. The stakes are so high, and the Netflix adaptation, in my eyes, really turned me on to wanting to read the manga. The first volume, I think, came out a couple of days ago, and you can actually pick that up. It's in this really awesome new cover. I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm thinking about grabbing it. But yeah, Alice in Borderland, super awesome, and you can actually grab it today. Number 3, I actually have right behind me, and I also have a review of this one on the channel already, and that is Record of Ragnarok. Now, this series has been highly anticipated for me. The anime fell very flat, but the manga itself has been one of the mangas that I've wanted to collect for the longest time. I'm so glad they started printing this in English. The first volume is out now. The second volume comes out this month, I believe. And Record of Ragnarok is a series that follows humans versus gods, and they're put together in fight matches. Every 1,000 years, the gods get to decide whether they're going to annihilate the human race or whether they're going to let them live for another 1,000 years. And it's come around this time, and instead of their normal voting system, they've decided that they're going to pit the best humans versus the best gods, and whoever wins gets to decide the fate of humanity. Each volume covers a different fight as far as I'm aware. The first one being Thor versus Lu Bu, and the second one being Adam versus Zeus. I've really enjoyed my time with the series so far, and if you wanted to hear a little bit more about my first impressions, you can check out the video up in the corner. And I definitely didn't just hit myself in the face with this manga. Next up on the list, we've got Sakamoto Days. Now, Sakamoto Days is a series that I knew absolutely nothing about until I watched a video by the anime man who actually reviewed this and said it was really freaking awesome. It properly piqued my interest about this series. It follows the main character who was once a great hitman in his life. He was one of the most renowned hitmans in the world, a very dangerous person, but he fell in love. He decided to settle down and have a family, and now he just runs a little convenience store in a kind of small town in Japan. But being a hitman is a pretty dangerous business, and you're going to make a lot of enemies, and these enemies have decided they're going to hunt him down and try and ruin this new life that he's made for himself. So the main character has to defend his town and his store and his family, but he's not allowed to kill anyone. He's sworn a vow to himself that he's not going to do that. So instead, we get really inventive ways of him dealing with these problems. This series sounds super dope, and the first volume comes out in the next couple of months. I've already put my pre-order in at Forbidden Planet, and there will be a first impressions video on the channel as soon as I get it. Next up, we've got Darling in the Franxx. Now, this is a really, really big up-and-coming anime that I've heard a lot of people talk about. I know absolutely nothing about it, but for that reason, it had to be put on this list. It is a mecha series based in the distant future where humanity is on the verge of being wiped out by a species called the Klaxosaurs. And in this world, children are bred to pilot their own mechas, and each mecha is piloted by a boy and girl duo. It follows our main character Hiro, who is learning to become a pilot and comes into contact with a really violent and dangerous pilot named 02. And they form this unlikely bond together and become this team who are going to pilot the mechas. 02 is actually known as being the partner killer, and for that reason, Hiro has to juggle the idea of being a pilot, being a good pilot, and also dealing with this very, very dangerous partner. I'm not the biggest fan of mecha series, but this one does sound really interesting, and from everything I've heard, it is really good, so it definitely deserved to be on this list. I don't actually know what the ETA is for this one, so I'll put it somewhere on the screen. Number 6, we've got March Comes In Like a Lion. Now, this is the one series on this list that is completely different to everything else. This is just a basic slice of life manga, and it follows a main character who is a professional shogi player. He's still a young man and he lives on his own, and he's really struggling to handle his life alone at 17, living in his own apartment. That is until he runs across 3 sisters who have decided they're going to help him become the best person he can be. They're going to help him grow up, and it's a really great coming of age story about this character and his relationships, friendships, and how he comes into adulthood. Now, this is another one that has an anime adaptation that is widely renowned and is something that has been massively recommended to me. I haven't watched it yet, but this manga is going to be really interesting to read, and I'm looking forward to it coming out later this year. I think it's coming out around November time. It's a super late one for 2022. And finally on the list at number 7, we've got Kaiju number 8, and I thought I'd put it here just because it would be funny because of the name. Now, Kaiju number 8 has already come out. I believe the first volume is available and the second volume may have just come out, but this series is a classic shonen jump. You've got a character, he wants to battle kaijus. How's he gonna do that? He's gonna end up becoming a kaiju. So kaijus are these massive Godzilla-like beings who have decided they're gonna attack Tokyo. And in this world, there's a team of people called the Combat Corps who are coming up against these kaijus and defeating them and destroying them. And after they've done that, there's a cleanup crew that comes in to remove the bodies. Kafka is part of this cleanup crew, and during one of his operations, he actually ends up being infected by a kaiju parasite, which allows him to change into a kaiju whenever he pleases. And using this power, he becomes humanity's most formidable force against the kaijus because he can become their size and become as powerful as they are. It's very reminiscent of Tokyo Ghoul, Jujutsu Kaisen, or Attack on Titan, but it does sound super awesome, and I am really looking forward to picking it up at some point. However, this is my least hyped one on the list, and it might be something that I actually read digitally rather than collecting it. But anyway, guys, that is my list for 7 of my most anticipated manga for this year. If I've missed any out, please be sure to leave them down below. Leave a little synopsis and see if you can guide me over into wanting to pick that manga up. I'm always looking for new recommendations, and the comments box is the perfect place to leave them. Also, what would your most anticipated manga be from the list that I've given today? Let me know down below. If you've enjoyed enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to be notified every single time that I upload. Don't forget to use the links down in the description. It really helps me out, and some of you guys have been using them, and I'm going to be putting all of the money towards new equipment and stuff for the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.